me though I'm not loud. Even here, where no one stops to ask. Even here you see behind my mask. I have sat in rooms full of living souls and felt more alone than the empty holes of every abandoned place I've known. Even here you see me even alone. There are Sundays I sit in the second row and smile at every face, and no one knows that I drove home in silence every week, that no one asked my name, no one would seek me out. I am the man, the woman who has learned to fill a room and still pass through, unseen, unheard, unnamed, unfound. Even in the church I make no sound, but you called Zacchaeus from the tree. You stopped the crowd for one who could not see. You asked the woman at the well her name. You see the ones the world has never claimed. Even here you see me in the crowd. Even here you hear me though I'm not loud. Even here where no one stops to ask. Even here you see behind my mask. He is the God of Hagar in the waste, who found her fleeing broken and in haste, who called her name and said, I see you here. El Roy, the God who sees, who draws me near. He is not the God of the visible alone. He is the God who finds the one unknown, who sits in silence at the edge of things. He is the God of every lonely I have prayed into what felt like empty air. I have wondered if my prayers went anywhere beyond the ceiling of my silent room. I have sat with loneliness like a tomb around me, and then quietly he came, not with thunder, just by speaking my name. And in the speaking everything was changed. I was not invisible, I was clear. When I cannot see myself, you find me. When I put myself on shelf of unworthiness, you cross the room for me. You are the God who sees, who sets me free from the prison of the unnoticed life. You call my name through every lonely strife. You have always seen me, always known. Even here I am not alone. Even here you see me, you have always seen. Even here you knew me, knew what I had been. Through every room I sat in unseen through. Even here you saw me and you always knew my name, my face, my loneliness, my pain. Even here you called me and you called again, until I heard and lifted up my face. Even here I found you in this place. I am not invisible, not anymore. I am not invisible, not anymore. I am not invisible, not anymore, not anymore. He crossed the room, he opened every door of loneliness and called me by my name. Even here he saw me and he came. The wound a brother left goes deeper than the wound of any enemy or plan. Of darkness for the knife that cuts the most is held by one you loved and trusted close. I brought my faith into that friendship pure. I thought the bond was holy, I was sure. The wound a brother left has changed the way I walk into a room until today. It was not a stranger who betrayed. It was someone at the table where we prayed. Someone who knew my weakness and my name. Someone who used the knowing for their gain. And in the church, no less the holy ground, where I had thought that safety could be found, was where the wound arrived from trusted hands and left me questioning all sacred lands. And I have closed my heart since then. I know I have held the new ones at a careful low distance, not because I want to, but because the wound a brother left has given me its laws. The wound a brother left goes deeper than the wound of any enemy or plan. Of darkness for the knife that cuts the most is held by one you loved and trusted close. He was betrayed by one who knew his face, who sat beside him at the holy place of table fellowship, who knew his voice, who made the ancient wound by ancient choice. And he received the kiss and went to die. He did not close his heart, he did not hide behind the wound. He prayed for those who broke him, and in praying he the prison spoke. Free from, and I am learning from his way, that the wound a brother left need not have say over everything that follows in my life. He was betrayed and still he loved through strife. I do not minimize the wounded real. I do not rush the process of the heal. I only bring it to the one who knows what inner church betrayal feels, and shows in the posture of a man who once was free to trust and now walks carefully. He sees the wound, he holds it, and he says to me, the wound a brother left will not define thee. You were betrayed by 12 who ran that night. You know the wound of those who should have fight beside you, and instead they fled, and one delivered you, and still you loved your son. Judas, even in the garden, friend you called him, and I find in that the end of my own bitterness. If you could call the one who broke you friend, then after all, the wound a brother left is real and deep, but it is not the wound that I will keep forever. For the God who heals the broken, betrayed, has spoken, and he spoke my name above the wound and said to me, the wound a brother left will not keep thee from trusting slowly, carefully again. The wound a brother left is not the end. I am still here, still standing, still in faith. The wound is real, but God is more than wraith of comfort. He is real, and He has held the wound a brother left, and it has spelled not my ending, but my deeper trust in Him. The wound a brother left is healing at the brim. Mind that will not rest at 3 a.m. The thoughts that circle back to hurt again. The what ifs and the should haves and the fear. The mind that will not rest, and God is here. He is in the insomnia, the dark. He is in the racing, anxious heart. He is the peace that passes understanding still. The mind that will not rest, He always will. I have lain awake and counted every fear. I have mapped the worst of every coming year inside my head before the sun has arisen. Before the world has stirred, I am already driven into every anxious corner of the night, into every shadow and imagined plight. And the morning finds me worn before it starts. The mind that will not rest tears men apart. But there is one who neither sleeps nor slumbers, who holds the night and all its fearful numbers, who is awake when I cannot find rest, who meets the anxious mind inside its best and worst, and will not leave it to the dark. He is the peace inside the anxious heart. The mind that will not rest at 3 a.m. The thoughts that circle back to hurt again. The what ifs and the should haves and the fear. The mind that will not rest, and God is here. He gave His beloved sleep, the ancient word. He is the lullaby the world has never heard. Fully He is the stillness in the storm of every anxious mind. He is the warm and quiet voice that says, be still and know that I am God, even when the thoughts won't go. He is the shepherd who restores the soul. He makes me lie in pastures green and whole. I have brought the 3 a.m. to Him in prayer. I have laid the racing thoughts before His care. And sometimes peace came quickly, and sometimes it came by morning. But He held the times between the asking and the settling down. He held me in the anxious and the crown of thorns that anxiety places on the head. He held me through the long and anxious dread. You never sleep, and so you hold my night. You are awake and sovereign in my fight against the thoughts that will not let me rest. You are the peace, you are the calm, the blessed quietness that only you can give. You are the reason anxious men still live and rise and face the day. You hold the mind that will not rest until in you it finds. The mind that will not rest, you hold it still. The thoughts that circle, you can calm them, will not always instantly, but you are there at 3 a.m. The God who hears my prayer. He is the peace that passes all I know. He is the stillness in the undertow of every anxious wave. He says, be still. The mind that will not rest, in him it will. The night is long, but he is longer still. He holds the anxious mind and always will. I lay my racing thoughts before his throne. The mind that will not rest is held his home.
I stood before the throne with all my shame, too broken, I believe, to speak his name. Too far, too gone, too stained, too much the cost. Too broken to be loved, too far, too lost. But he ran to meet me on the road. He took the shame, he carried every load. I was not too broken for his grace. I was not too far to see his face. I have built a catalog of everything I am, every failure, every weakness, every scam. I ran on myself, every broken vow, every time I fell and every time somehow I fell again and built the case inside my head that God had every right to hide his face from one like me who had become the sum of all his failures, overcome by nothing that I tried. Too broken, Lord, too broken to deserve a single word of grace. I stood outside the door and said, too broken to be loved, too far, too dead. But the door was open and the light was on, and the Father was already far along the road toward me, running before I spoke. Too broken to be loved, that lie he broke. I stood before the throne with all my shame, too broken, I believe, to speak his name. But he ran to meet me on the road. He took the shame, he carried every load. He chose the broken Peter who denied. He chose the broken Paul who had allied himself with murder and with death before. He chose the woman at the well and more. He chose the thief upon the cross beside him and said, today you are with me inside paradise. He did not choose the whole, he chose the broken. That has been his role since the beginning. He has always run toward the broken and the least, the done and undone. He has never turned away the one who came, too broken and afraid. known the cross, the death, the utterly alone, and made it glory. And you make of me the broken thing you love eternally. I am not too broken for your grace. I am not too far to see your face. I am exactly what your love was for. Too broken to be loved, I am no more. I stood before the throne, he called my name. He did not list my failures or my shame. He ran, he held, he dressed me in his grace. Too broken to be loved, he took my place. I was not too broken, not too far. He loved the broken, that is who we are. His love is not for those who have it right. His love is for the broken in the night. In the night. I am not too broken to be loved. I have been received, I have been held above the shame, the catalog, the case I made. Too broken to be loved, that lie has faded. When faith runs dry and I have nothing left, when the prayers feel hollow and the chest is empty of the fire it once held strong. When faith runs dry, Lord, how do I belong to you still when I feel so far from shore? When faith runs dry, what is there to endure but you, the God who holds the dried up well? When faith runs dry, you are the living spring still. There are seasons when the well runs dry, when I reach inside and find no reason why. I still believe, accept the habit of the years, accept the memory of when faith felt real through tears. I have watched the fire lower and go dim. I have sung the songs and not felt any hymn move inside me. And I wondered, Lord, if faith that feels like nothing is still stored somewhere in the God who holds the empty and the hollow and the dried up, and the hand that reaches into nothing and still reaches. And I have found that reaching when there's nothing is itself a form of faith. Still something, trusting in the dark without the feeling near, is the deepest faith of all. And God is here. When faith runs dry and I have nothing left, He is the water in the spiritual cleft of rock. He is the spring beneath the dry. When faith runs dry, He is the reason why. Elijah ran and lay beneath the tree and said, "Enough, Lord, take my life from me." The prophet who had called the fire from heaven was done, was dry, was spiritually uneven. And God did not rebuke him, God came near. He fed him, touched him, said, "The journey's here, too great for you." He met the dried up faith, not with a sermon, but with bread and grace. I have learned that faith is not a feeling held by the strength of the believer. It is welled up from outside me. It is His gift, and when my portion empties, He can lift more from the inexhaustible supply of His own faithfulness. When faith runs dry, it is not I who holds the faith in place. It is He who holds my faith by grace. You are the author and the finisher of faith. You hold it when I cannot hold its weight. You are the spring beneath the dried up ground. You are the faith when my own faith is not found. And so I bring you this, the empty cup. I bring you what remains, and you fill up what I could never fill. You are the well when faith runs dry. You are the living spring still. When faith runs dry, you hold what I cannot. When faith runs dry, you are the living water brought to my dried up and hollow aching soul. When faith runs dry, you make the broken whole. You are the author, you will finish this. You hold the faith when I have gone amiss. When faith runs dry, you are and always will. My faith ran dry, and He was still the spring. My faith ran dry, and He was everything that faith required from outside my own store. When faith runs dry, He is the open door.